from an undisclosed location under a farm pond somewhere in the Midwest. Your host is Jim Crowley. This is Slickfish Radio. Hey everybody, welcome to another edition of Slickfish Radio. Thanks for joining us tonight. I'm a little bit bummed because we were supposed to have our friend Bob Allen on tonight, and he's having some technical difficulties. So this may be a really short show tonight. Unfortunately, some reason he's not being able to click into the studio. We've been trying for about 15 or 20 minutes. To get him in, and for some reason and on his end it's just not going. So I apologize for that. I got some people clicking in already, and thank you for stopping in. We will Tony Lamarca. Hi Jim, I'm here. Well, hi Tony. Hi. I'm hoping we have Bob Allen join us tonight. He's got a great book here that I'm going to show you here. It's really hard on the green screen, but it's called Battle of the Bass, and it's a fun little book. And we're hoping Bob's going to be able to join us. We're going to give him a couple minutes, but if he can't, we're going to go and reschedule. We've got some interviews lined up for the next 2 or 3 weeks, so we're going to have some good interviews and some people coming up in the next couple of weeks. Sometimes technical difficulties just do that when you go live, and unfortunately, I don't think Bob is going to be able to join us tonight. And if he can't, then we will reschedule. Donald Haas just joined. Lee Kerr. Hi guys. Hi everybody. Thanks for joining in. Like I said, we're hoping to have Bob Allen tonight, but for some reason it's not working on his end. And sometimes you just don't know why that happens or the reason behind it. So unfortunately, we just may not be able to connect with him tonight. So, but before we get started, and get into it, and maybe we can have some questions from you guys tonight. If you have some fishing questions or whatever, we can just do this as a makeshift show. And if you guys got any questions about fishing in general, throw them out here tonight, because if you want to, we can do that. And if Bob's able to chime in, then we'll do it. If he can't, we'll just make this a short show tonight, and we'll reschedule Bob for another time, and then he can come back on. Tony Lamarca said, I don't mind your pamphlet. He says, I love your show. Well, thanks, Tony. I appreciate that. Do have a good, if you guys haven't seen it yet, we do have a new episode out on Wired to Fish TV this week, and it is on cold fronts and jigs. And I will tell you something, there was a lot of cold fronts, a lot of weather. We had snow one night before we were filming, but it's a really great show. We're going to show you how swim jigs and bladed jigs can come into play on pre-spawn bass. And there's a big surprise at the end of the show. I'll clue you in a little bit. A big muskie shows up at the end of the show, and we actually get it in. And so if you haven't tuned in to Wired to Fish yet to see Jim Crowley Outdoors, we're on every day at 4 o'clock. Actually, we have hour blocks on Saturday and Sunday as well. And before we get a little bit more into this, in case anybody's got any questions tonight or wants to talk fishing at all, and just pop off some questions, hey, just let me know. That's one of the great things about live, is sometimes you have to improvise. And if we got to do that for a little while tonight, we will do that. I want to thank my friends at American Tackle. Always a great part of the show. And one neat thing about the thing that we do on Wired to Fish every week is I always tell you about the rods that I build for the specific techniques that we're doing. And so this show is no different. The bladed jig rod that I built and the swim jig rod, we go into that a little bit, as long as the reels that we use and things like that. So it's a really cool episode if you have a chance to see it. I want to thank our friends at Explore Lacrosse. They've had some really high water conditions lately, and higher than I think they've seen in a really long time. But don't let that keep you from going to La Crosse. There's a lot of great events happening right now. They're getting ready into their spring thing, so colors are blooming there. Always a great place to stay. That is an awesome area of the country to look into Airbnbs. We're actually going to do that later this summer and let you know some cool places to stay. We're really looking forward to going back to La Crosse as soon as the water levels come down a little bit, because right now it's a little shady, but plenty of great restaurants and plenty of great places to stay. My wife just chimed in. She says, I'm watching you upstairs. Well, good. I hope that's where you are, sweetie. Gen Wong just chimed in. Hi, Gen. How you doing? Gary, Spike, just good evening, Jim. Spike, hey, nice to have you on here. Also, hey, I was just at Shields yesterday. Any of you guys are clay shooters like I am, it's been really hard for me to find 1 ounce loads anywhere. And Shields actually had some pretty decent prices on 7.5 and 1 ounce loads. And that's what I like shooting when I'm shooting sporting clay. So we were at Shields yesterday. Yes, their fishing selection is stocked up. So if you want to check out Shields, AJ Gorgeous popped in. Also a fantastic, that is Give It Away AJ, fantastic show for Cast King, and we're going to talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Shields was absolutely great yesterday. Spent a lot of money there yesterday, and you happen to do that when you go to Shields, but it was great. Of course, our friends at Cast King, with the new episode we were talking to you about, that is on Wired to Fish TV now. I'm highlighting their new Speed Demon Elite reel, and that reel comes in 2 sizes, 8/6-1 and 10/5-1. And I'm using the 8/6-1 for swim jigs. And it's a great reel for that. We're going to show you how we set it up with braid and how we did everything. There's going to be a lot of really cool shots. There's some great drone shots in there showing exactly what we're doing on this episode. Tony LeBarker said, Galena, Illinois, the water is 11 feet above pool. That's just absolutely crazy. Yeah, it has been an insane spring this year. We're a little bit behind on everything. I want to thank Dakota Lithium, because we were out on the water 2 days last week. And the week before, filming this show one day about 12 hours. Thank you, Dakota Lithium, for just the best power out there. Gary Sperry just said, "Rip reports, have you heard from Lake Erie, Jim? We got to fish 5 or 6 days last week, fish for $1 million around the islands." Gary, all I've heard is we were supposed to go up there and film a walleye show a couple weeks ago. The weather shot that right in the butt and canceled. We were going to go up there and hopefully film a show on hair jigs for walleyes, and unfortunately that got postponed to a later day. We've had a show in La Crosse this year get postponed due to high water levels. So things like that happen. And those of you just joining us, and I thank you for joining us tonight, our guest was supposed to be Bob Allen, author of a lot of great children's books. Battle of the Bass is his newest one. And unfortunately, he had technical difficulties, just could not come in the studio. We don't know why. We're going to work on that issue in the future and get him in here. It's on I think it's on his end for whatever reason. He couldn't get on StreamYard. I don't know why that is, but we will figure it out. And hopefully we will get, I guarantee you, we will get him back on. But we have some great guests coming up in the next few weeks. We actually have some new shows that we're going to be filming. We're heading to Mille Lacs in 2 or 3 weeks to hopefully film a couple great shows for all of you on smallmouth, including one day we're going to be filming with Troy Linder. It's kind of like a tradition that we do every year with Troy, and we're going to have Troy back on the show sometime this summer. But Troy and I always get together, and we both love smallmouth. And so we're going to be doing a smallmouth show together, maybe even a walleye show, just depending how things go. So we got that going. Then we're going to be going to Florida later this year to film my very first tarpon fishing experience. Got some great reels from Cast King, the Capson 4000 and 5000 on 2 great American tackle rods that I built myself for tarpon. I'm just going to be thrilled if the rods don't fall apart. So I built them. So we're going to see how they hold up the tarpon, and I'm going to be really looking forward to that. So as for those of you just joining us, we said Bob Allen obviously is not going to be able to join us tonight, unfortunately. But if any of you have any questions right now and you want to talk a little bit about spring fishing, I can tell you some of the things that we've been doing. But if you have any questions, please feel free to chime in, and we will see if we can answer your questions, especially here in the Midwest. We've been traveling a lot, and we've been faced with a lot of really cold water conditions. Everything is just a little bit behind. And anybody who lives in Illinois and Wisconsin, we're even Minnesota, we're used to that cold front after cold front. This year, it's been really bad. I mean, we've just had a lot of wind, a lot of cold fronts, and a lot of changing conditions, bringing those fish up, pulling those fish back. And it's constant like that. So we've had to make a lot of adjustments and filming. I've got some tournaments this year where we've had to make some major adjustments just because of those weather changes. And anybody who fishes or hunts understands, especially this time of year, but any time of the year, weather is a big factor. Okay. And sometimes when you're going out there, whether it be a tournament or whether you're be filming for a show, you still have to produce. You still have to do the best you possibly can. So we've had to make adjustments. AJ, thank you. Who doesn't love Jim Crowley? Well, aren't you? Well, you know, you and my wife, that's my biggest fan club I got right there, AJ. So I'm very, very grateful for everybody and everybody who watches this show. Let's talk, throw some questions out there. And somebody gets a good fishing question tonight. I'm gonna send you a Jim Crowley Outdoors hat because we're gonna do this thing by the seat of our pants. So if anybody's got a fishing question that you want to discuss or something, let's do that. I'll pick a question out of it, and somebody's going to win a hat. But I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what we've been faced for these cold front conditions, especially when it comes to bass and crappie. We're actually going to film a crappie episode for the show, and we're going to do it on ultralight crankbaits for crappies, as well as some tube baits and everything like that. But we're going to do it on deep diving ultra finesse crankbaits, and these are ultra finesse Rapala crankbaits that go down to about 6 to 8 feet. So we're going to do a show on that because these crappies, even though they've been moving up and getting ready to spawn, that water temperature is dropped in some places to the upper 40s again. So they're not quite up there. And crappies that spawn in that 52, 58, 60-degree water, well, what do you do when they don't move up yet? And so we're actually going to be fishing a lake and some points, and the ideas that we've been doing on them is throwing these ultralight little finesse crankbaits, and I've been throwing them on 4-pound test. And it's just Rapala's little ultralight crank. It gets down about 8 foot. That and size 4 X-Wraps. Throwing them on 4-pound test, Sufix, Invisalign. And we've been catching crappies that way, and some big ones. So we're gonna do this episode on this and show you some alternative ways to catch crappies. That's not just the standard jig and minnow thing or the standard tube thing. We're going to show you how to use some other baits that not only are really productive and not only catch you big fish, but it's a lot of fun. And throwing little ultralight crankbaits is a great way to catch crappies this time of year, both in pre-spawn and in post-spawn. But we're going to do a pre-spawn show on it for you with little size 4 X-Wraps, as well as these deep diving crankbaits. So it's going to be some really, really cool stuff. And we're going to show you how to match your equipment and just go out and give you another way that you can catch crappies. Because one thing about crappie fishing for sure, I don't think anybody who fishes across the country doesn't like crappie fishing at some time in their life. One, for food, but two, when you get on a pile of crappies, it's a lot of fun. It's something you can really do that's a lot of fun with your kids. And when you have a chance to catch big crappies, and a couple different ways to do it, it's just like any other fishing. You can have only so many bullets in your gun, and then when you fire everything, what do? Well, what do you do when 132nd ounce jigs aren't working because the fish aren't shallow enough? What do you do? Well, then you probably have to back off to areas that they're at before they move into those spawning areas. And we're going to show you how to do that again with X-Wraps. Going to go down about 3 or 4 foot on 4-pound line, and little Rapala finesse crankbaits that go down anywhere from 6 to 8. So we're going to show you how to do that, and it's fun. You're going to have a ball, and you can do it with just the lightest equipment. Okay, it's nothing fancy, nothing special. It's just going to be fun. I got some Debbie Glenn just said, hello Debbie, how you doing? AJ, thank you for that. Mac Harden, hi. Gary, so when the Mississippi River finally goes down, where would you go to look for walleyes, assuming the river clean from floating debris? Gary, I'm just going to be honest with you, we're going to have to go check. That's one of the things I wanted to do. That's one of the things I wanted to do this summer if we have the opportunity, is we're going to go and explore. Because I haven't had the water level that high and then drop. Every time we're on a river, especially Mississippi River, it's always changing conditions. So where are we going to go? If it's summertime, I'm probably going to check wing dams. Is going to be one of the places we're going to check in the summertime, especially leading into fall. I don't know when that water is going to drop. Gary, one thing I will tell you, though, as the summer goes into it, we will let you know, because I know we will be heading up, depending on the water levels up in La Crosse. We will be heading up the end of June, probably going into July sometime. So we are, James Gerald, hi, James, how are you? For those of you joining us late, again, I apologize for technical difficulties. For some reason, Bob Allen could not join us tonight. I was really looking forward to checking out and learning more about him, because he's got some great kids' books out there on fishing. Go find Bob Allen, author, on Facebook and look at some of his great books. Matter of fact, I'm going to put up a picture of some of his books right here. And this is Walter Under the Ice, Battle of the Bass is in the middle, as you'll see there, and Walter the Wily Walleye. And Walter in that book talks about people trying to catch him and whether they can or not. I think it's a great thing for kids. I think it's awesome. I met Bob at one of the All Canada shows this year. I think it's incredible. So we're definitely going to have him on to talk again, because everybody watches the show. and has actually seen me at the seminars this past year, knows how much I really want to keep getting the kids involved in fishing. It's very important. We have to pass on what we know so the sport will grow. And if we don't teach them, the schools aren't going to teach them, that's for sure. So we have to do that for ourselves. So every one of us has that responsibility to be able to teach those kids and pass on what we know. One of the things I really like about just a couple of the places I'm going to mention real quick, and not just because they're sponsors, but it's because they do a great job. Shields does that. KastKing does that. I know that for a fact. American Tackle has done some great things with their rod and reel combinations they came out last year with at ICAST for autism and for young anglers, which is a great quality rod and reel combo that you can purchase that will actually grow with the kid. You can adjust. It's just a great product. But there are a lot of companies out there that do that. I think it's up to us individually as adults to pass that on to these kids, because if we don't teach them, who will? You can't pass on that responsibility. Take it up yourself. Gary just said, appreciate your thoughts, Jim. Bought 3 books from Bob for our granddaughters. That's awesome. And I'm sure they loved them. I mean, like I said, I got the book here. I read it. I know you can't really see it on the green screen. Sorry about that. But I read it and I started laughing about it. I think it's great. The Battle of the Bass is a really fun way to look at the difference between largemouth and smallmouth. It's just fun. And I think it's absolutely great. You know what? A lot of you are sticking around tonight. God, I love you. This is one of the best audiences. And what you guys do for us on Roku and Fire TV, our numbers are through the roof on those channels because of those of you who watch us through that. And thank you to everybody on Facebook and YouTube as well. But oh my goodness, on Roku and Fire TV, it's absolutely crazy out there. Thank you to all of us for sticking in tonight. We're gonna have some fun. Think about, we're gonna go to our break. Okay, I can't believe that this goes by so fast because you people are so much fun. We're going to go to our break. When we come back, have some questions. Have some fishing questions ready. And let's see if we can talk and educate one another. Let's have a good time with this. You know what? Sometimes opportunity arises and maybe we can help each other out, fill in a question or fill in some blanks. We'll be back in 2 and 2. American Tackle is home to the award-winning microwave line control system. Rod blanks to reel seats, ferrules to finish, grips to guides. They're committed to the very best in rod building components. Find out more, americantackle.us. With fishing beyond your expectations, indoor and outdoor activities, a vast variety of places to eat, drink, and stay. Discover your next adventure between the bluffs. ExploreLaCrosse.com. Located in Springfield, Illinois' largest selection of sports and sportswear, hunting, fishing, specialty shops and services, a 65-foot Ferris wheel, 16,000-gallon saltwater aquarium, and industry-leading knowledgeable employees. You don't take chances at Shields, ever. Go to Shields.com. Achieving affordable innovation through novel concepts and in-house ingenious designs. KastKing cost-effective e-commerce practices directly market to consumers, cutting costs by 30% or more on average. Affordable innovation, superior quality. KastKing.com. Believe in quality is measured by lifespan and harnessing their unique chemistry and engineering know-how. Dakota Lithium lasts 4 times longer, powering your passion with an 11-year warranty. Find out more, DakotaLithium.com.
Slick Fish Radio with Jim Crowley can be seen and heard on Roku, Fire TV, Spotify, Amazon Music, and iTunes.
There we go. Come here. Get in here. Yeah. Nice fish right there. Hi, I'm Jim Crowley. Make sure you catch my show, Jim Crowley Outdoors, Monday to Friday, 2 p.m. Pacific Standard Time and 4 p.m. Central Standard Time, exclusively on Wired to Fish TV. Look for Jim Crowley Outdoors on Wired to Fish TV on free ad-supported streaming TV, including Plex, that can be downloaded in the App Store at Apple TV, Roku, Samsung, and others. Hey everybody, we are back, and thank you for sticking with us tonight. For those of you who just joined in, and some of you just did, Bob Allen, who was supposed to join us tonight, unfortunately had some technical difficulties on his end. He couldn't do it, but we will have him back on. Make sure you go look up Bob's stuff on Bob Allen Author on Facebook. You can find out about some of his great kid books. They're fantastic. And Gary just said here that he just got some of the books for his granddaughters. And those books are fun, including, I'm going to put them up here again, just because I just think this is great. I think this is a great thing for kids. So you got Walter Under the Ice, Battle of the Bass, Walter the Wily Walleye, And I think there's a muskie book that's coming out pretty soon too. And I think I want to read that. We all want to. A lot of us who like to fish always want to find out more about muskies. And hey, if a kid's book helps me catch another muskie, I'm gonna get that kid's book. Some more of you are just commenting here. Again, thank you for all the questions. My goodness, and thank you for all the kind comments. David, thank you. James Yearlum, hi. Here we go. Gary started. If anyone wants some guide referrals for Lake Erie, just message me. Well, there you go, guys. If you're going to do that, let's talk a little bit. I want to talk a little bit about some of the spring stuff that's been happening as far as largemouth go and what we've encountered filming for the show. For those of you who don't or haven't seen my show, Jim Crowley Outdoors and Wired to Fish TV, we film a little bit differently where a lot of shows film a year ahead of time. We do everything as the season happens. So the new show that's airing this week is called Cold Fronts and Jigs. We just filmed it last week. Okay, so everything is really, really current. The crappie show that'll be on next week, and then there's going to be another show after that. Those are all going to be filmed later this week and next week. So you're going to see a lot of stuff that is current. So it's current with trends, it's current with new techniques, it's current with a lot of conditions that we're facing throughout the Midwest. And for example, the last week and a half or so, when we were filming the largemouth bass show, we started out at a place called Banner Marsh. And Banner, which is a awesome, phenomenal lake. And we were on a great swim jig bite there, and the average fish there was about 4 pounds. We had some really, really big fish. And then we got totally rained out. And then we had snow one night. So next night we ended up going just to Clinton Lake and finishing up. So we did a combination of swim jigs and bladed jigs and how they can be effective because the whole premise of the show was the family of lures that I have the most confidence in when things go tough or get tough are jigs, whether it be heavy cover jigs, swim jigs, bladed jigs. That's where my confidence lies when things get really tough, especially in the spring of the year, because they've been so productive, not only for just getting bit, but having the opportunities of putting big fish in a boat. And to prove that point to you, during the show, we got bass almost 6 pounds. We got a crappie almost, I think, 15.5 inches that came on a swim jig, believe it or not. And we got a muskie almost 42 inches. All those came on jigs after severe cold fronts and having to adjust things. So what we did in this show is we did the best to put our odds in our favor. We stayed on north or northwest banks that were going to warm the best. And honestly, the best bites, as we thought they would be, came later in the morning or later in the day as the sun got higher. And what color jigs are you throwing this time of year? Caden, great question. Caden, so let me finish this, Caden, then I'll get right to your question, because that's a very important question. So what we did is we adjusted. The heavier the cover, and cover and structure are different. I do not like when people say it's structure and they're looking at a brush pile. Structure is not a brush pile. It's not. Structure is an irregular change in bottom contour. That's a drop or a break, something like that. That is structure. Structure, simply defined in a dictionary, is a change in bottom contour. Okay, so I am not throwing something in the structure. I'm throwing it in the cover. So with really heavy cover, like brush piles or laydowns crossed over or whatever, I would throw a swim jig. If we were in sparser cover or I was fishing the ends of those laydowns, I would switch over to a bladed jig. If I felt I had to get deeper into the cover, then I would fish a heavy cover jig. Remember, you only have 2 types of presentations. You have vertical and you have horizontal. So a lot of times in cold water, a lot of my best approaches are horizontal presentations, whether it be bladed jigs or swim jigs, square bills, balsa baits, things like that. But when you need to slow down and probe that cover, that's when I go with a vertical presentation, more like jigs or a big tube crawl. But this year it's mostly jigs. Caden, to answer your question, what color jigs are you throwing this time of year? Caden, for me, it has absolutely nothing to do with the time of year. It has everything to do with water clarity. Okay? What I mean by that. Oh, hi, Pat. Good to see you, Pat. Thank you. Water clarity. And what I mean by that, light or clear water to lightly stained. I'm going to use more natural colors, green pumpkins or green pumpkin blues or watermelons. When I'm going to stained or muddy water, then I'm going with contrasting colors. So this time of year, Caden, when I was fishing clear water most of the time was going to be more of a green pumpkin or a shad type looking swim jig. Okay, the swim jig that you will see on the show that we were throwing was actually a very shad colored bait. It had like a light blue bottom. It had silver sparkle, a little green pumpkin in it. It showed up better in clear water. Remember something, Caden, and everybody else who was listening to his great question. Fish are visual feeders, okay? Which means the better they can see it, the better the odds are of you getting bit, okay? Leave out all the fancy colors. Leave out all the rhetoric. Bottom line, the better they can see it, the better your chances of getting bit. So in clear water, I use more natural colors. Point case in being, 2 colors work everywhere across the country, everywhere. And I fish bass from Florida or from Mexico all the way up to northern Ontario, to where I've fished them everywhere. 2 colors or 2 color combinations work everywhere. Green pumpkin and black and blue. Why? In clear water, it's very hard to beat green pumpkin. Yes, sometimes I put some blues in it. Yes, sometimes I put some purples in it. That's personal preference. Okay. Stained or muddy water, contrasting colors will always show up better to those fish. What's a number one combination of, I don't care what brand you throw, it's black and blue. Black and blue, black and red, brown and orange, black and chartreuse. It's a contrasting color. Caden, if you're not sure what to do and you just want to get bit, here's my best advice to you. I don't care what brand you fish. I don't care. If your favorite color is black and blue, take that color, put it on something that you have the ultimate confidence in, and fish the heck out of it. If your favorite color is green pumpkin, put that color on and fish the heck out of it. If your favorite spinnerbait is white, then fish that and have the ultimate confidence in it. I have my baits that are when times are tough. And that's exactly what this show that we just put out there this week, that's exactly what we did. One of my best colors for a swim jig. And everybody pretty much listening here, there's a couple new people who chimed in tonight, and thank you for being here. But everybody that knows that I love to build my own stuff and build bladed jigs, one of my favorite colors is that sexy shad for clear to lightly stained water. It's a sexy shad skirt. I don't throw silver blades very much. When I do, it's a muted blade. Okay. In other words, it doesn't have a lot of flash to it. I dull it down because everybody out there throws a silver blade. When it comes to stained or muddy water, I throw a black and blue bladed jig a lot with a black blade. Okay. It's it, but that's the confidence level for me. When it's ultra clear water, for example, and I'm fishing smallmouth and it's tough, I'm going to a little jig I helped design for Lure Parts Online called a Jackham jig. And it's either 1/16 or 1/8. It's just a little stand-up jig head, and I put a little green pumpkin 2 3/4, 3-inch worm on the back. It's basically a Ned rig. And I fish that. Okay. Or I fish a little 3-inch swim bait. Pick your brand. I put it on a little VMC hybrid swim jig head, and I fish that. Whenever times get tough, I slow down, and a lot of times I use a smaller bait. In stained or muddy water, I may use a smaller bait, but I wanted to put off a lot of vibration. Again, if it can't be seen, it needs to be felt or heard. Any of you who would ever come in my boat and see, and those of you who've seen me at seminars, I show you the boxes from my boat. I have one of the most boring tackle selections you'd ever want to see. There are colors that I have confidence in. Yeah, the new colors are great to try. And in a lot of cases, they work. And they work for different individuals. That's why we have so many colors. That's why we have so many great things to choose from, because everybody can get confidence in something. But one of the biggest things that I see people doing wrong when they're fishing is automatically got to change color. Automatically change color. That's what it is. No, it's not. All the time, it's not. Sometimes when things get tough, the 2 things you should consider first are depth and retrieve speed. Because a lot of times, those are the factors that are going to come into play before color. Don't automatically think you've chosen the wrong color. Mentally, you are taking yourself out of it when you do that. Check your depth and check your retrieve speed. Okay? Do that first before you worry about the color. I'll give you a quick little scenario here. If you're reeling a spinnerbait in and you see the fish behind it and he swats at it but doesn't take it, One of the first things I'm going to do is not change color. One of the first things I'm going to do is let that spinnerbait go deeper on my next retrieve. Maybe the fish didn't want to come all the way to the top for it. Sometimes that'll work. If I was reeling it slow and the fish comes all the way to the boat, my next cast, I'm going to speed up that spinnerbait. I'm going to see if my retrieve speed makes a difference. I am going to check those things before I check color. Okay? Not that color doesn't matter. In some cases it does. But check your speed and check your depth. Eric Anthony says, on the slower cold front days, which cadence have you found to be the most productive when throwing a bladed jig? Great question here. And Caden, thank you for your question. Caden, matter of fact, I'm going to get your information after this. You were the first question off the regular thing like that. I'm going to get you a Jim Crowley Outdoors hat, Caden. So I will contact you on Facebook after this show, and I will get you a hat. And I thank you for watching. I hope you stay tuned here for the end. Eric, good to talk to you, buddy. My cadence on a bladed jig a lot is very similar. I use a lower gear ratio reel than most people do, I think. Matter of fact, a reel I use for a bladed jig, we just did a show on this earlier this year. And it's a Cast King Bassinator. Yes, I'm mentioning the brand because I want to mention the gear ratio. Okay. So the Bassinator has a 6:6 to 1 gear ratio. All right. A lot of people nowadays throw an 8 or higher gear ratio, 8-to-1 or whatever. And that's fine if that works for them. Realize though that a lot of gear ratios are higher now because everybody's got their foot on a trolling motor 100 miles an hour all the time. I still don't fish that way. And so higher gear ratios are great for some things. When it comes to a bladed jig, I've always been a fan of a steady retrieve on no higher than that 6:6 to 1 gear ratio. I like that. One of the cadences I will do too when it's tough is as that retrieve is going, I will pull on my rod slightly and then gain that retrieve back up. So the bait is coming, it comes a little faster, and then it goes back to that retrieve. Or when I come over things, I stop it for a second for the blade to fall and then start the retrieve again. And not always like a quick retrieve. So I'm reeling it, stop, and then start reeling again. Okay, I do that especially when I'm fishing over the ends of laydowns. Like you said, on cold front, sometimes those fish will move out, those bass will move out to the end of those trees or off that slow retrieve, dropping it over those branches, letting it fall, and then picking up the retrieve again. A lot of times when you go to pick up the retrieve again, the fish has already got the bait. Okay, that when I am throwing a bladed jig around heavy cover like that, and we're dropping it at the end of branches, a lot of times that's when I put a flat trailer on the back. Those of you who know the stuff I do at Lure Parks know we have a trailer out there called the Turbo Tail Craw, and it's got 2 claws in the back, but it's got a flat bottom. And I use a flat bottom on bladed jigs a lot when I'm reeling around cover or heavier cover when I decide to do that. I also hold my rod tip up a little bit higher because it will help guide the bladed jig with the hook up over it due to your rod positioning and to the flat bottom of the trailer that I choose. Okay. Eric, did that answer your question? I hope it did. Love the free hair. Pat Bowden. Yeah, Pat, it's great to see. I appreciate it. Anybody else have any questions on that? And I really appreciate all of you tuning in tonight and staying with us. And like I said, for those of you joining late, we were supposed to have Bob Allen, author, on tonight. We will reschedule Bob and get him on here again because I think he does a great thing with those children's books. I really do. And if you guys check him out on Facebook for that. Does anybody have any other questions? I hope that answered those of your questions like that. I love, especially bladed jigs in the spring, have caught me some really, really big fish. Bladed jigs are awesome. Cold water baits, especially for largemouth. When it comes to smallmouth, which will be going up to Mille Lacs in a couple of weeks, then we're going to be throwing a lot more jerk baits, a lot more hair jigs, probably some Ned rigs, shad wraps, things like that. Because I really think everything is a little bit late for us in the Midwest this year. And I have a feeling it's going to be that way when we get to Mille Lacs, and we're going to have to change up. Pat Bowden, good question. Do you use rattles on your jigs? No, I don't. And I know a lot of people do. And I used to years ago. Don't know why I changed. But I've never, the best way I can put this, I've never noticed a difference using them to not using them. When I fish a jig in muddy water, the fish are going to be really shallow or shallow most of the time anyway, I will put a bulkier trailer on. I have not, and I'm sure somebody would argue that point. I have not noticed a difference from not using rattles to using rattles. Matter of fact, I've said this before. There's more. I feel there's more intelligent fishing pressure on the water now than ever before. I still do not agree with the thing that fish think. They don't think. They simply react to their environment. Do they get accustomed to things? Maybe for a short period of time. Maybe. That's another thing too. I don't want to give fish human qualities because they don't have them. But I have more confidence when I do what I feel I do things different than other people do. That's one reason that I build a lot of my own stuff. That's one reason I'm a big fan of balsa crankbaits and have been for almost 20 years. Because when we put the cameras underwater, sometimes you've seen heavy rattle baits and you've seen fish shy away from them. Does that happen all the time? No, it doesn't. But realize too, on a crankbait, Pat, for example, even a balsa bait, the hooks and split rings bang together and they actually do make some noise. And so there's always some type of noise going down there. If you're taking a jig without rattles and bring it up to the branch and bang it on the branch and let it fall back down. I've actually put a GoPro underwater and listened to just a jig head hitting a rock. It does make that clicking sound. I think there's always some kind of noise. Now, on the other end, if somebody on here uses rattles and you have exceptional amount of success, don't change because I'm saying something. This is what works for me. That's a great thing about fishing. We can all do what works for us. Okay. Remember, I will never tell you, those of you who continue to watch the show, and I thank you so much for that. Remember something. I will never, ever tell you what to think. Ever. I will tell you that as an angler, you should think. But don't overthink it. All right? Don't overthink it. All right? Tony, how about rattles and crankbaits? Yes or no? And that's what we were just talking a little bit about. Tony, hey Jim, thanks for the muskie tips. Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome, John, and good to have you here. I don't throw a lot of rattles. I don't throw a lot of crankbaits with rattles. And like my favorite lipless bait, besides the old Rapala Rattle and Wrap, which has a lot of rattles in it, I really like the Arashi Vibe that Storm makes. It's got a lot less rattles in it, and it also falls vertically. It's a very cool bait. Again, I've went a lot of times. I go a little bit. I've always been the guy that go a little bit away from the norm. I've always been the guy that tinkers with things, and that's always been what's been successful for me. Are there times when rattles definitely work? No question. No question about it. Are there times when I feel that a balsa bait with almost no noise makes a difference? Guarantee you. I've been on the receiving end of that many, many times. Many, many times. I think, in my opinion, probably one of the best Hall of Fame crankbaits, if there is a Hall of Fame for crankbaits of all time, is a Rapala DT6. I've caught fish everywhere with it. And yes, I understand that I've been with Rapala for a long time. There's some bomber crankbaits back in the day. The Bomber 2A was a phenomenal crankbait for me in my tournament days. Absolutely phenomenal crankbait for me, and didn't make a lot of noise, but I won a lot of money and caught a lot of fish on them. But baits like that come through cover are really good. If we're going to talk crankbaits for a second, if any of you haven't tried the new Rapala Rocco, a square bill, some night maybe we'll get into a discussion about why that thing works so good. I've caught some really big fish on that bait already because I can get it through cover easier than other square bills that I've thrown. And yes, there are a lot of great square bills on this one. This one I really honestly think Rapala hit a home run with. This one will be tied. This one is one of those crankbaits that I will have on a rod beginning of the year to the end of the year when I'm fishing shallow cover. I honestly feel it's that good. So anyway, I got off on that subject a little bit. I was just thinking because I was just cranking about a week or so ago with that crankbait and caught some really, really big fish. That thing is like a 4-wheel drive crankbait. It comes through everything. It's a great, great bait. Anybody else got any questions? You guys have been awesome tonight. I thank you. And we went longer than we usually do, but I could talk fishing all the time. And I'm so appreciative of all of you. Let's Caden Weiss, do you have any tips for wacky rigs? Okay. Actually got it tied on for what we're going to be doing. Again, Wong just said I like the BX Brats, and those are great. Okay, and you're sure. Caden, yeah, we'll talk about wackies, and then I'm gonna let you guys go. But I'm gonna give you some discount codes before we leave. Caden, yeah. So wacky worms. So we're gonna get into understand this, Caden. I've been with Rapple and VMC for years. So, but I'm going to tell you this because it works. And if you haven't seen the show before, I think anybody would vouch for me on here. I do not talk about anything that I don't use myself. Okay. So with that being said, with Wacky Worm, I use the VMC crossover pliers. I think that's great. It puts a little band on your Wacky Worm. And the reason I like that is because one of the biggest problems with Wacky Worm, if you use an O-ring, is when you set the hook, sometimes the hook can go right back into the plastic and you can miss the fish. This crossover pliers, Gary, thank you for joining tonight. I really appreciate you being on. Gary said he had to go. Thank you for being on, Gary. I really appreciate you being here. And Caden, and I've had that go back with that crossover ring. It keeps the hook up and away from the Wacky Worm. So my hookup percentage has been a lot better. It allows the hook to be driven easier, whatever hook you use. I've started using the VMC Redline hook in the Nico style hook, and it's a 1.0. And so those of you who don't know about the new Redline hooks, they're not that expensive, but they have a coating on them that allows them to go in about 50% faster than a regular hook. They're incredible. The first fish I actually stuck with one of those hooks, I'd use the pliers to get the hook out. The compressed point on this hook, it's a lot harder for it to be bent over, so it doesn't dull as easy. It's a really, really cool and well-designed hook. So I use a Nico style hook on Wacky Worm, and I use that O-ring. The other thing I will do, Caden, instead of just throwing a plain, I will thread on a 1/16 ounce tungsten weight a lot of times, and then put a bobber stop on it before I get to the hook. I can fish the Wacky Worm deeper. I can also get a little bit more action out of it because of that 1/16 ounce. I don't use any heavier than that. 1/8, 3/16 to me kills it. Then you're just fishing a Wacky on the bottom, like a flick shake. But a 16th ounce, try this, Caden. Put a 16 ounce, put a bobber stop on whatever hook you use. Throw it in the water and watch how the 16th forces the end of that worm to work a little bit more. So you get more action out of that worm with just a slight addition to weight. Okay, now I don't know how old you are, but I started fishing Wacky Worms and tournaments back in the late 90s. And it's one of my absolute favorite ways to catch fish in clear to lightly stained water when they're shallow. I've caught them down to about 10 feet on a Wacky, but that 0 to about 4 to 5 foot range can be killer. Even in cold water, even in water temperatures in that 54, 53, 54, 55 degrees. It is a great way to be really methodical and work an area over. And I've had a lot more luck putting that 16th ounce or using a weighted Wacky hook, no heavier than 16 ounce. Okay, Caden, you're 15. Yeah, so I was doing this before you were born. So I love fishing a Wacky. My standard setup is 10-pound braid to an 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. If I'm fishing around docks, sometimes I'll raise it up to 10-pound fluorocarbon. But most of the time, it's 10 braid. I use a Suffix 832, which is a sinking braid. And then I'll use fluorocarbon leader because fluorocarbon sinks too. So when I have two sinking lines, I have better lure and line control over that slow falling Wacky. So that's what I use. Okay. I use a high gear ratio reel on that. Okay. I use a 7/4-1. I actually use a Cast King Speed Demon Elite. It's a 7/4-1 just because I can take up line quicker. Whatever reel you use is fine, Caden. I'm not telling you to go buy anything. I'm just telling you I like a little bit higher gear ratio on a spinning reel because it works better for me. But the key to that setup is having that hook be in that upright position. That's why I like a Nico style hook. That crossover ring works really well to keep that hook in that upright position. And I've also had better luck when I reel down and feel that fish moving to pull back and let the fish pull down and set the hook itself instead of trying to rock solid, the hook set like if you're fishing a heavy covered jig. A lot of times in a Wacky, whether it be a largemouth and especially a smallmouth, they will set the hook on themselves. As you pull back and they pull, that resistance will pull the hook. The next 2 or 3 cranks of the handle will pull that hook all the way in. Try that next time. And I think you will have some success with it. So there you go, guys. We spent a lot of time tonight on this, and God bless you. This turned into something we weren't sure, and I'm very grateful for all you being here. I am going to give you some codes here. Let's do this. And just so you know, guys like Kate and others, if you're looking to think about getting on a pro staff, American Tackle is looking. And if you want to check out their products, go to AmericanTackleAnglerProducts.com. Type in the code JCO20. You get 20% off everything on that page. AmericanTackleAnglerProducts.com. If you guys are in the rod building and things like that, who else would you check out but American Tackle? They are the best. Go to AmericanTackleAnglerProducts.com. My friends at KastKing, who also do so much to support high school anglers and just support the sport of fishing. And we have more stuff, cool stuff coming from KastKing. But if you want 20% off anything on their website, anything, go to KastKing.com, put in the code JC52AFF. You get 20% off everything. Rods, reels, you name it. A lot of great stuff from KastKing and a lot of great stuff coming. So there you go. Last comment on here, Tony Lamar. Thanks again, Jim. Always a great show. Well, God bless you, Tony. I thank you very much. So we will, next week, we will have a new guest. It's going to be fun. I'm just going to tell you this. It's going to be fun. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but we're going to have a lot of fun next week. So look for announcements next week. We'll have some more video clips. If you're not following us yet on Facebook and Instagram, which on Facebook I'm sure you probably are, or YouTube, we're going to be having some more shorts coming out there. Make sure you check out the show on Wired to Fish TV every day at 4 p.m. is Jim Crowley Outdoors, and you get that on Plex. Or if any of you who have Fubo, they just signed up for Wired to Fish TV. We are on there as well, so you can check us out there. 9 different streaming stations Wired to Fish TV is on right now. That's crazy. Just crazy the amount of people that are getting to see Wired to Fish TV. And thank you so much for watching that show as well as this one. I'll be on to answer some questions on Facebook after the show. Thank you for sticking around, and thank you for making this a great episode. I hope you got some good information. I hope you had a good time. God bless you. I'll see you soon.